Good morning, Claremont Center for Spiritual Living. How are you this morning? I'm Reverend Tracy Earlywine, and I am so happy to have you with us today. This online virtual experience we've been doing for 8 months now. Can you believe it? And yet it's still a wonderful way to come together in community. What I know is that you are magnificent, and it is good to remember that and to be reminded of it. So thank you for coming. Thank you for letting yourself know that life is fabulous, and you are a part of that. I want to thank our crew this morning. This is Thanksgiving weekend, and it's been all about gratitude, although I do have to say it's been a Thanksgiving unlike any other. Yes? Yes. But you know what? The gratitude remains the same. And this morning, I'm grateful for the crew that puts all of this together. I'm grateful for our practitioner, Pat Richards, who's joining us this morning, who will be doing our opening prayer and reading. And I'm grateful for this community, this reminder that we are all about love and support, and that this is who we are and why we are here. So, with that attitude of gratitude, I turn this over to Pat to get us started, and I'm going to invite you just to take a breath and close your eyes right where you are. And let that tone take you deep within your own heart, finding that place of love and light and peace.
Just take all that in, all that love and peace and energy into this space filled with God. And as I breathe in all this into me, I just let it flow and through, in, and around me. So here's a couple of things from my morning that I share with you today. So the brightness of the dawn this morning, that was all the different levels and spectrums of pink and red and orange that lit up the sky this morning. The amazingness of the night gave way to the energy of the day. And what a glorious, glorious show it was this morning. So take all that in and let that flow through, in, and around you. And then the light breeze from the beach this morning that came in, ever so quiet, ever so gentle, all packed with energy. Just let that move in, through, and around you. And take in the goodness, the excitement, the energy, and the potential of a brand new day. Because it is a gift that we cherish and we share with each other. And it's a gift of renewal and excitement. And it's today. And let's all take advantage of a bright new day full of life and ideas and joy and peace and love. And I'm so thankful to be here today. Reverend Tracy is right. It is a time of Thanksgiving and a time to rejoice and renew. And let's just stand in all that goodness. And please join me in saying, and so it is.
So it is.
So my reading today is from Creative Thought, December 2014. And it's called, I Transform Darkened Moments. In the midst of any dark feeling, I remember God. Recognizing God reminds me that love and appreciation begin inside with self-love. God and I are one within that divine space where all is love. No matter what story I tell myself or what appearance is before me, God is all that I am, whole, perfect, and complete. I recognize the gift of life as the one presence of Spirit manifesting itself through me. I consciously shift my thoughts. I'm willing to feel supported and loved, knowing that I am a divine being with gifts of spirit to express. I detach limiting beliefs about how I think I must show up. I remember to daily step into infinite possibilities of something new. I choose to do things differently on a regular basis and loosen my thought process, allowing them to outpicture creativity and differently. I am free as I consciously use the creative process of mind. I am a being following divine guidance in faith that is good right here and right now. I choose joy and experience life as the gift of God. In gratitude, I release this as truth, knowing that the law of mind has manifested this perfectly, and so it is.
Thank you so much. You know, a few weeks ago, we had a power outage, and it was very early in the morning, and I was home in my chair with my coffee, and Pat and Bella were at the park walking around the pond, and all of the lights went out. And I mean all of the lights went out. And it was absolute darkness. And I remember sitting in my chair thinking, wow, that's dark. And having to sort of orient myself to, all right, I'm here and I'm in my chair, so I know where I am in my house. Do I go get the flashlight? Do I just wait a few minutes? Meanwhile, at the park, Pat and Bella were walking around, and you know, when all the lights go out, you stop moving for a moment and you reassess. You know, in the darkness, in the open, there's a little edge of, you know, could we be unsafe? Is the coyote coming at us through the field and we can't see him? And what do? Do I wait? Do I head for the car? Can I even see the car? Do I know where the pond is? You know, darkness strikes something primal in us that reminds us how we crave the light. We want to be able to see. We want to be able to know what to do next. And when there is no light, it can be a very frightening thing. It can be a very immobilizing thing. Now, of course, physical darkness, by the way, the lights came on within a couple minutes and it was all fine and I didn't need a flashlight. Just a note. But you know, it's besides the physical thing, you know, we've all had darkness of the soul. We've all had emotional trauma or difficulty. We've been in a state of confusion or anxiety or just, you know, the unknown outcome and how that unsettling that is, and how hard it is to think and to move forward and to feel confident when we lack an understanding or when we are overwhelmed by emotions that seem to cloud our thinking. Because you know, we're physical and we're mental. We have our five senses and we have our mind, our ability to think and organize and strategize. And we are that plus our spiritual nature. And when those three things are, these three facets of our being are out of balance, out of sync, generally we feel some form of distress. We have these phrases about seeing, like we talk about losing sight of. We lose sight of something, we've gotten distracted or we're off our mark, right? We don't know where we're going anymore. We talk about being kept in the dark. To be kept in the dark is to not know. Who hates not knowing, right? To go to the dark side. You know, that element of humanity that can so easily choose a route that is not supportive of life. How easy it is to go to the dark side. We have these sayings, but we also have things like the poetic picture of the velvety night darkness, or the deep, rich soil of the earth that in the darkness nurtures the seed. And we also have the dark night of the soul. And so this idea of being in the dark wakes us up to how much our soul craves the light. And the soul's craving is the light of understanding. And so in this week, this last week of our superpowers theme for this month, we're talking about our spiritual night vision. And my title today is How to See in the Dark. You know, to see is to understand. We see things and we interpret, we pull the meaning out of what it is that we're looking at. You know, an infant will see everything and not understand. Right? There are no words yet. There is no definition. There's only the lights or the action or the voices or the whatever the five senses can take in. And yet we understand that when we look at something, we tell a story about it in our minds. You know, when I see something growing, I think abundance. You know, when I see the sun come up, I am energized. I have a response to what I am looking at. So when I don't have the ability to see, when my physical sight is blocked, I want to grab the flashlight. But you know, the flashlight is a pretty small beam of light, right? It's a little circle of light that you can point where you want and see what's right there in front of you. But it is a very limited view, and it is a very limited number of choices. If I try to get up out of my chair in my dark house with just my flashlight, and I'm looking for my keys because I'm going to go somewhere, anywhere where there might be lights, like maybe get more coffee somewhere. Somebody somewhere has power to make coffee, right? So I'm looking for my keys in the dark. It's really easy to walk right by them because my little flashlight missed that side table altogether. How much more can I see and understand and take meaning from if I turn on the overhead light? Right? When I turn on a light that lights up the whole room, or when I flip on the porch light and illuminate the sidewalk, all of a sudden I have more choices. I have more things to look at. I have ways in which to move forward that I couldn't see before. And what the soul's light is looking for is the light of understanding that comes from the One. So when I step out into the sunlight, suddenly my vision is expanded. I can see farther and broader. And what if I really want to see, if I really want a bigger perspective, I'll climb the watchtower, where high above the horizon, the view is spread out before me. Emma Curtis Hopkins is a spiritual teacher who gave us the phrase to take the high watch. And by that she meant this high consciousness. In other words, to take the highest view possible of what's happening in life so that we realize the bigger picture, the infinite possibilities, the way forward that we don't even know exists until we get up a little higher and take a peek. And so in her book, High Mysticism, one of the things I found fascinating is that she quotes from so many traditions and philosophies and religions and through the ages, everybody from Plato to the Upanishads. She says, for example, Plato says, the eye of the soul is by right science lifted upwards. And she says that the Upanishads say that I have given thee an eye divine with which to behold my power. So that inner eye, that spiritual eye, and she says by turning that inner eye toward the heights, we are taken above the thought circuit to the watch. And what she's talking about is this ability we have to move even beyond how we think to a grander view, to the mystical view, to the high watch, where we have a view of everything. And it's from this place that we're able to truly see, to understand in a greater way what life is and who we are in this life. On the human level, you know, our life is peaks and valleys, right? Ups and downs, back and forth, red and blue, black and white, right and wrong, all those things. But when we have our eyes upward, not because God is in the sky, not because our spiritual truth is out there somewhere, but upward towards the light to remind us that there is a greater source than where we are here on the ground, that there is a wider view. She says, lifting the inner eye to that which is above reason lights the two outer eyes to see the world in a new aspect. It gives the tongue new descriptions of the world, and that descending light, compelling transformation of all surrounding objects, is the mystic river of which the angel told Ezekiel, everything shall live whithersoever the river cometh, and everything on its banks shall be healed. So when we turn our gaze upward and outward, when we seek the light and the greater view, we actually invite that divine perspective right here into our human experience so that this humanity can be healed. That wherever the river flows, there is healing. Wherever that light shines, we are blessed with that. So we have this ability to look up. And what I've noticed is that I don't always remember that. You know, we've quoted many times Albert Einstein saying, you know, you can't solve the problem at the level of the problem. And psychologists will tell you that when people are depressed, they look down, right? Making eye contact with someone who is really anxious or depressed is very difficult. They don't want to look up, they look down. And when we meet someone who is at peace with themselves and the world, we say they have a clear gaze, right? They look forward to an open road, a clear view, and there's a calmness about them. And when we see pictures of the visionaries or the mystics, they are always looking upward, always looking towards the sun, towards the stars, out into the vastness of the sky. For it is here that possibilities are. Here that we find a greater meaning and a broader view. And that gives us a greater understanding of how life is. We talk about looking something up, which is what? It's to look up the meaning of a word, for example, or to look up information about how something works. We talk about things looking up. In other words, they're getting better. And this phrase, this idea of bringing your eyes upward, has been around for a very long time. Throughout the ages and across all belief systems. Not always because, again, it's a person in the sky that we're talking to, but because the light of understanding comes with the broader perspective. That high watch, that higher consciousness leads us to living a better life. So I want you to try something. Take a moment, the way you're sitting, and sit so that you can see the floor. All right? Keeping your eyes open, I want you to think about an issue or a situation or a relationship or just a feeling that you have that seems like you haven't been able to resolve it. There's a problem to be solved, or somewhere in your life is discomfort or restriction. Maybe it's just sort of that low-level grief that comes from the isolation we've all been experiencing. Now take a moment and think about that while you look at the floor. And just notice where your mind goes, how your thoughts speak to you. Notice how you feel and how it feels in your body as you look at the floor and consider the problem. And then take a deep breath and consider that same issue while you look straight ahead, while you simply direct your gaze forward. And notice how that feels. Does your energy shift? Does the conversation in your head change? And now take another deep breath, and this time consider the issue while you are looking up. And don't throw your head all the way back. Just lift your chin so that you're looking maybe at where the ceiling meets the wall. Or if you're looking outside, you're looking above the horizon. And consider the situation with this view of looking up. And just notice. And then taking a breath and coming back here. You know, the first time I did this exercise, it was pretty startling. Looking down, all of the swirl in my head just like kicked into high gear, and it was all this, what am I going to do? And this is such a problem, and I don't know how to get out of it, and I can't think of what the next step is. And the feeling in my body got more constricted and tighter. Had the urge to cry. It was just too much. Felt very overwhelmed, very helpless. And then looking up was like, oh, well, that's better. Okay. So I could probably figure out something I can do. I mean, I don't know what it is, but so I felt more optimistic. I felt a little more clear-headed, and I was sure I could figure out what the next step was. But then when I looked up, it was almost like all the words just kind of fell away. It was a sense of relief and release and like a letting go of any emotion tied to that was negative or anxious or that there was some difficulty. What I felt was this infinite possibility, like the vastness of the sky. And the thing is, we are all of those things, and we choose where we look. We choose how we want to step into a situation and move through it. Now, that's not to say we're not traumatized or in pain or things are difficult. I mean, you know, when you're in it, you're in it. Your feet are in the mud, your feet are in the mud. The reminder is that is not the only story. That if you also think about this while you look up, you will go to a different place. Things will change in your life. Even if it's not an immediate answer, okay, do this. You know, it's not usually that clear, right? But the idea that you can broaden your perspective and gain a different level of understanding at the spiritual level means that it will show up in your thinking. It will show up in the manifestation, how it demonstrates around you. It will show up in your life in a physical way. This is how we tap into our spiritual night vision. This is how we see in the dark. The darkness will always come and go. We can see no matter what if we will look up. When we learn at first to use our physical senses, you know, our physical sight, and start to take in the world, we sort of grow and evolve into managing our mental processes, right? We learn to think about what we're looking at in different ways. And so most of us have outgrown how we saw the world as a child, and we've redecided how things work and how we want to be in the world, and we've learned to coach our own thinking, to train our thought, to help us to live our best life. And now I invite you to evolve, continue that evolution, to evolve into this really mystical experience of tapping into the vast possibility and letting it come to you, to be in a receptive mode rather than having to figure it out, struggle, or pull your feet out of the mud. To simply open up to what's possible so that when you do move forward, it is with a clear gaze and it is with a sense of meaning and purpose and understanding that maybe you didn't have before. We see the light above. You know, we look at the stars and dream about all the things that can happen, or we gaze up at the sky. When I first moved to Texas, you know, it's very flat in most of Texas. The sky goes on forever. And for this city girl, that was quite a new view to see this sky where the clouds just rolled by and kept right on going, and the colors were so gorgeous. and there was just so much space. That's a very different feeling than the freeways of Southern California, right? So we have this ability to see more, to understand in a greater way, to lift our eyes up to that which is our source, the light, the capital L light, the energy of spirit itself, the energy of life itself is that light. We look up for inspiration, right? Think about it. When you're trying to think of something, what do? You look up, kind of to the left, looking up. Try to remember something, you look up to the right. There's psychologists that do all this stuff. But if you'll notice, when you're trying to think of something, you look up. We look for inspiration, inspire, to breathe in from spirit. We want to breathe in that creative energy so that we might express our life more fully. So this energy, this feeling of vastness, of possibility, of a greater meaning, of a huge perspective that gives us so many choices. It's this feeling that we want to tap into. It's this feeling that aligns our minds and our hearts with our soul. And that is where we live our best life. In the darkest of times, Anne Frank wrote in her diary, "I feel the suffering of millions. And yet, when I look up at the sky, I somehow feel that everything will change for the better, that this cruelty too shall pass, and that peace and tranquility will return once more." So your call this week is to practice looking up. Any situation, any conversation, anything that starts to swirl in your mind, pause and look up. Think of it and look up. Allow yourself to spend time each day from the perspective of the vastness of possibility. For what I know is that when you look up at the sky, everything will change. Namaste. Taking that deep breath, we pause and remind ourselves that as we breathe, we are breathing in spirit. That the inspiration of the one mind, the creative genius of all things, is the very breath that we breathe, the very mind that we use, the creativity that we express. That this life of love and wisdom and beauty and joy is the life that we are. And I speak my word moving forward that each and every one of us taps into the energy of the infinite possibility. That as we cast our spiritual eye upward, we see the light, we gain understanding, we find a deeper meaning for ourselves, in our world, and in our relationships to each other and the planet. For there is a power of life that cannot be denied. And that even amongst the chaos and disorder and distress of the human experience, there remains at the heart of every person that divine spark, that little speck of light that comes from the infinite spirit that lights up the entire world when we but see it. And so I know that each of us has within us all the light we need. And that to be reminded of this light takes a simple gesture of raising our eyes upwards, to put back into our consciousness, to remind, to put into mind again, to make us aware once again that the infinite light and love of spirit is right here, right where we are. And I am so grateful. Grateful for the blessings, for the light, for the love, for the warmth, for this teaching which teaches us how to live our best life, teaches us how to be the spiritual beings that we are in human expression, that we might lift each other up and be lifted. Life is good right here, right now, and I am grateful. And I simply allow it to be, knowing that it unfolds in space and time just as it should. And so it is. All right. I have a very short affirmation for us today. You ready? Repeat after me. Today I look up and live abundantly. And so it is. All right, thank you. All right, so those of you that were able to join the Interfaith service on Wednesday night this last week, what a fabulous evening that was. There were guest speakers, there was music, there were readings from different traditions, all about gratitude, and just a lovely way to spend time. You know, as a Zoom experience goes, this one was pretty high up there. I believe it's recorded. You can see it on the Facebook page of the Claremont Interfaith Council. There's a link there to the YouTube. And it's worth a visit if you didn't get to see it. It was just a lovely, lovely evening. Of course, next Wednesday night we have meditation at 6:15 and the Gateway service at 7. The links for both of those will be in the e-blast and also on our website. So do join us. It's a great way to see your friends' faces while we have a conversation. It's wonderful. We took a break this weekend, but we're going to resume our walks on Friday morning for December. We're going to meet at 9 o'clock in the morning for the first 3 Fridays. After that, it's holidays, so we'll have to talk about that. But if you want to just take a little short walk and get out in the fresh air and walk off the donuts from the last 2 months, meet us in the front parking lot. Maybe you had a little extra pie this weekend. Meet us in the parking lot on Friday, the front one by the street, and we'll take a walk at your own pace, but it's good to get out there and, you know, we're half hour, whatever, or if you're feeling really energetic, you can go longer. But join us at 9 o'clock on Friday mornings. It's a great, great time for us. Let's see. I want to remind you to reach out to your friends in this community. We have been physically apart for some time, and although some of you have been able to come to our garden services, not everyone has. So, you know, pick up the phone, send a text, make a call, send an email, write a letter, thank you note, whatever. Just connect with each other. Think about the people that you would sit with at lunch, or maybe the people that would sit in front of you or behind you in the sanctuary, and make it a point to make a connection. This is how our community stays strong through this time of mostly separation. So I invite you to do that. I also want to invite you to reach out to your practitioners. You know, they keep the high watch. They hold the higher consciousness, the bigger view for our community as a whole. They also do private prayer support. So do give them a call or send them a little note. They are happy to speak with you or to set up an appointment or to do a short prayer. Just whatever you need. Let us support each other during this time as we continue to manage the pandemic and the shifting rules of the health department. And, you know, we're all doing the best we can, and isn't it easier if we do it together? So find a way to do it together. All right, I also want to thank you for giving on this Thanksgiving weekend. Your contributions have kept us going through all of this time. We are at the end of the year, and of course there are always end-of-year cleanups that we do. So there's taxes and insurance and things like that that we want to be in the black for at the end of the year. So we invite you to consider us when you do your end-of-year donations. And also know that whatever we receive goes into our resources, our ability to be ready for whatever comes in 2021. So we thank you for giving, we thank you for your contributions, and we invite you to do the same through the end of the year so that we start the new year strong. We wouldn't be here without each other. So thank you for all that you do. And next Sunday we will be in the garden Sunday morning at 10 a.m. So again, if you wear a mask and bring your own chair, we'll spread out on the grass in the garden and have an in-person service at a safe distance. And you know, there's something so energizing about that. Do come if you can. If you have questions about that, make sure you call Andy in the office and we'll get you all set up. So until then, know that truly you are loved.